It's good to see you, Pastor Peter. Good morning, everybody, and good morning, PICP, that I haven't met, but I hear and I see all the work that Daddy's doing. A special thank you to Pastor Susan for ensuring that I'm part of this. Thank you, Pastor Fash. I was going to say Pastor Bukola, but I see that everybody sees Pastor Fash, so thank you so much. One thing that I always do is whenever I have an opportunity to listen to financial conversations, my ears are open and I'm looking for what God is trying to add to what I already know. And so I thank you, sir, for starting off and telling us this morning that God does not lie. I said, that's mine. It may not even be for monetary matters, but you spoke to my heart, sir, and I thank you for sharing that word. God does not lie. And so I don't know how many of us are around the call right now. So many of us around the call, it doesn't matter what your situation is now financially. It doesn't matter if you are in debt. It doesn't matter if you're paying the debt. It doesn't matter if you are struggling to pay the debt. Pastor Fash has spoken to us from the throne of grace. God does not lie, and he would help you out of the situation. So quickly, we would look at, I have 20 minutes and I would try to focus on, some of the important slides. Our topic says breaking free from debt and financial bondage. The first thing I want to put on the table is that things are tough, and that's the reality on the table. Things are very, very tough, extremely tough, but not tougher than the word of God and not tougher than the opportunities that God has for us. And so we have to change our strategies. We have to change how we do things. And so the key word that we need to take away or that we need to focus on as we start the conversation, this brief conversation this morning, is self-discipline, self-awareness, integrity, being true to yourself, and accountability. So no matter, we can't gloss over it, that things are, the way they should be, but God has a plan for us. And that's why I'm grateful to God for leaderships like our PICPs who decide to focus on how people can improve. Because increasingly, we see that there's that need in the church. Now, I'm going to talk under 3 outlines, and whatever you can take away from any of the sections, please stay focused and try to take something away. We'll try to be as practical as possible. What I try not to do is, when I have this opportunity like this, is to make the conversation book-like. Well, what can we do, in practice? How can we really change things for ourselves? I want to put Luke chapter 16, verses 10 to 12 on the table before we go forward. Whoever is faithful with little will be faithful with much. If you're faithful in little things, you'll be faithful in large ones. But if you're dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And if you're untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? We all want to be trusted with the true riches of heaven, the opportunities that are out there, because there are opportunities for every one of us. And if you're not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with things of your own? So we're praying for God to enlarge our coast. We're praying for God to bless us. We're praying for God to promote us. The question is, how faithful are we? How faithful are we with the opportunities that God has given to us? I know we have a wide range of, the age band. There will be some young ones, there will be some elderly ones. But whatever position that you are in life, what have you done with the opportunities that God has given to you? And that's the core of the conversation this morning, the stewardship in the team. Excuse me. Now, it's very important that, we are on top of our money. It's important that we know what we are doing, because whether we like it in this world, there will always be lenders and there will be borrowers. What we want is that for those of us who are children of God, for those of us in the church, for those of us in position of responsibility, either as church workers or in our homes as leaders or heads of our homes. We want to make sure that we are lenders, that we are not borrowers. We want to move from being in debt to lending. And we'll talk about it. Debt is not bad. It's how we manage it. It's how we manage it that matters. The scripture says in Proverbs 22:7, the borrower is servant to the lender. We want to be on top. We like that scripture that says, I'm the head, I'm not the tail. But what are you doing? Or what will you do in practice to make sure that you are the head and not the tail? I put here, I say self-discipline is key. Remember where I started from when I said self-awareness. If you are in debt today, you have to ask yourself, how did I get here? What did I do to get here? And I thank God for how Pastor Fash answered the PICP's last question. A family that has, that is continually under pressure, despite, based on what they have, what can they do? I'm sure Pastor Peter knows, and the people who know me around the call know that I talk about the ESI model. We'll get to it in under the 20 minutes that I have. So what we're looking at is, what are the things that we can do? And so if you're in debt today, you have to ask yourself, how did I get here? Is this something similar to the question that Daddy asked? Is it because what the family has is not enough to feed the children? Is it that, inflation has caught up with the person's, with their earnings? And so they have no choice than to borrow to survive. And that's why I'm saying, let us anchor our conversation this morning around what is actually happening there. Now, it's important that we focus on the word self-discipline, but you can be very disciplined and still the money will not be enough. And that's where the E in my ESI model comes in. Every one of us, we must learn to earn more. But before we get there, now, we don't need the definition for anybody, but I just want to put it on the table that borrowing can be, it can be for your business, it can be corporate, it can be to family, you might be owing family, you might be owing the church. I know some churches give out, support to people who need. And people take these loans with a plan to repay down the road. Who are you owing? And if you're living abroad, is it that, your credit card, you've gone over? And actually, credit cards also, we have credit cards in Nigeria. Are you overusing your credit cards? What is important is you understand what debt is, and you understand how to use debt, and that you understand how you got to where you are. Now, I'm sure that we all know of the quick apps that are all around, many of them, and even the microfinance banks. So many financial organizations, the little ones, they're giving people facilities. I understand sometimes you fill a form online and it's instant, or you even fill a form before you get your card, they've credited your account. But God save you when they start looking for the money. You'll take your wedding picture and print it as obituary. So we have to be aware of these things. We have to be aware, of the people who taunt us and, because of what they want to benefit, they give us free loans and all of that. We have to be careful. Now, I want to talk about contentment, and I will not take it too far from the reality on the table, because people can be contented, they can be good Christians, and yet find themselves in debt. We have to moderate it. It doesn't mean we should stop living. We will live. But we have to understand when we need to borrow money, it has to be for things that will add value to us. I'll go quickly to what I have put here as good versus bad debt. Because if you're a business person and you want to enlarge your business, or even you want to start a business and you don't have family inheritance, you might have to borrow money. I have a friend, she has a very big school in Lagos. And she got a loan from, one of the banks to start that school. And the last time we were having a conversation, she was like, her goal is to make sure that that school has a branch in Lekki Phase 1 and that she's billing in dollars. But I've also listened to her on a radio conversation when they were asking her how she applied herself. And she said she did not take the loan from the beginning, planning not to repay. She took that loan with a plan to repay. That's good debt. She borrowed to enlarge her business, and she borrowed with integrity. Some people borrow from family. Some people even fill forms for church support with an intention not to repay. And you see, and pardon me, sir, that I keep going back. It's just that the conversations are interrelated, right? And so Pastor Crash talked about opportunities. When you go and borrow from somebody and you abuse yourself, you abuse the opportunity, and you don't refund the money when you said you would refund it, you're giving yourself a name. Now, let me not go too far from the core of the matter. So there is good debt and there's bad debt. And what we need to do is be responsible with borrowing, be responsible with opportunities to access funds. I work in a foundation where, we send indigent students to school, and recently we were in a meeting and I was told that the federal government of Nigeria education loan is not supposed to be paid instantly, refunded instantly. You're supposed to repay after working for a certain number of years. But I do know that there will be people who have applied for those loans with an intention never to repay the federal government of Nigeria. It's a different thing if government says we'll write it off. So when you're approaching debt as believers, let us approach debt with an intention to repay. Let us remember that in everything that we do, we are accountable to God. If you approach your family for a short loan, have integrity on the front burner, because integrity is what will open new opportunities for you down the road. So quickly, good debt, you can borrow money to invest. You can borrow money, of course, if the cost of borrowing is lower than the returns you're expecting. I like to teach with examples that make the stories, that make what we're talking about relatable. I have a friend, a senior friend, so many years ago. And when she was going to clock 50, she said she did not want to owe anybody. I mean, this is somebody very comfortable and very wealthy. But she did not want to owe anybody when she's 50. And so she had some loans running and she was going to, pay them down, loans that if she were going to take afresh, they will be at higher cost. So I said to her, well, look, you must look at your net asset position. You must look at, the assets, your investments, and you must look at on one hand and look at the borrowing on the other hand, and look at the net position. And that's what will determine whether you're in debt or whether you need to repay. Because if you repay this loan, you're going to liquidate money, if you need to take money somewhere else, you'll be borrowing at a higher cost. And she said, oh, that makes sense. Indeed, I took that money and I've invested it in something that is giving me a higher yield. And so if I go and rush to refund it just because I want to be debt-free at age 50, then I'm not doing myself good. So my point is, you can borrow, but be careful how you borrow. Be careful how you, what you use, what you borrow to apply. Bad debt, of course, is when you have to borrow to buy an Ashwebi that you cannot afford. A family member of mine attended an event yesterday and I saw the cap on his head and I said, oof, I know this Ashoke. And I said to that other family member, I said, do you know that's the Ashoke we used when we buried my father over 11 years ago? He attended the event and he looked very presentable. It was because I know, because I remember the event and it's a very memorable one for me. That's why I knew that Ashoke was over 11 years ago. You don't have to be under pressure to do anything. So you don't need to borrow for such things. And you must live within your means. Borrowing to live above your means is bad. Borrowing because you want to invest in CBEX is bad. Borrowing to invest in what you don't understand is bad. But you can borrow to enlarge and expand your business. And even if you are not in business, there might be some, emergencies where you need to quickly leverage over borrowed funds. We heard earlier on about emergency funds. Sometimes the emergency funds are not as, you plan, but something still happens. Borrow with integrity. And I'm not saying that we should leave this conversation and saying that we're going to be borrowers. I'm saying that if you find yourself that you need to borrow, have integrity at the back of your mind, and remember that you're a child of God and you're accountable to God with whatever opportunity He brings your way. If someone gives you money, there are so many people. I have a policy with my husband. When people come and they say they want to borrow, we don't lend people more than what we can write off. But so often people come and they borrow and they don't know that we're not even expecting it back, and they abuse the opportunities. And then down the road, they need more genuine help, but they cannot come back because they have abused that opportunity. Let's not be people like that. Let's be responsible people. Now, quickly, to how can we not live from hand to mouth? How can we not live and need borrowing to pay school fees, need borrowing to self-develop, to, need borrowing, to even, maybe take care of parents, because, it's Africa and we need to take care of family. When I teach financial empowerment and I teach personal finance, I anchor my teaching around what I call the ESI model. And the E there says that we have to earn more. Whatever we're doing, we have to make sure that we look for opportunities to earn more. If you look at the billionaires, they're not doing one thing. If you look at millionaires, they're not doing one thing. And the people who achieve financial freedom, which is, what I teach all the time when I'm doing money conversations, they don't achieve financial freedom on one source of income. And if you find yourself living abroad, there are very few people abroad who are focused on one source of income. They look for things to do. And so the question that we need to ask ourselves this morning is, what can we do to earn more? Pastor Fash said, what can you sell? What can you do to earn more? Look around. There are services that can be provided. There are products that people are looking for. And if you're young, then it's even better for you, because you're young and you can take on opportunities. You can do things that maybe older people can't do. I know many people who have retired but find themselves doing things. And it's a virtual world now. Some are lecturing in universities, even when what they retired from is not lecturing. So what can you do? This conversation is not about multiple streams of income. I have some of my team members around, and I ask them to put our link online. There are free resources. We have free resources online. I've had multiple conversations where I've brought, guests to talk about how you can earn more. What can you do to earn more? The opportunities that are there, the kinds of businesses you can do. I know we all can have logistic businesses. We all can have daycare or home care support, but there are things. And in those days, I used to tell my sister that Google is your friend. These days, it's ChatGPT. It's your friend. Put your name, put your age, put your mini CV, put where you live in Lagos, and say, tell me, what are the things that I can do? What can I sell? What can I do? What can I trade in? And so, just so that, because I don't have time, I'm not reading everything on my slide, let us hold that and understand that whatever or wherever we are in life, we need to look for opportunities to earn more. If you're in somebody's paid employment, be diligent, do what you need to do, and work for who has employed you. But self-develop yourself on the side and look for opportunities on the side. I know I attended one of the programs in the province by the men's fellowship, and they brought a gentleman to speak to the church. And he talked to us that day and said, do you know you can start businesses without money? And I'm like, I put on my finance coach and I'm like, tell me how we'll start business without money. But it was so enlightening, because he elaborated the possible opportunities for businesses to start with people sponsoring them and all of that. You can ask for that video and it will be shared. I'm sure that Pastor Susan or Pastor Peter can give us access, or people who need access to such things. Yeah, I talked about products and services. And then the S of my model is save better. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because Pastor Fash did a good job already on that. But what I do know, and I want to say, is that whatever you earn today, put something aside. no matter what it is, no matter how small, because it's in the habit. I know you'll be saying you're speaking from one side and saying the money is not enough and you're still telling me to save. It's all about habits, and we're trying to develop and improve ourselves and get ourselves to the stage where we do things better. Now, you cannot save very well if you don't have a financial target, if you don't have a good plan. Pastor talked earlier on about budgeting. We have a free budgeting template that I can share with anybody. If you want a budget template, I think our email, Timothy, I'm sure you've put the email in the chat box. If you want a budget template, we'll share it with you. And you see, so like 3-4 years ago, I was talking to on a platform, and a gentleman had signed in from Abuja, and he said, "You people keep talking budget. I budget in January, the exchange rate was this. I wanted to buy a car. Now it's June, I can't buy the car because the exchange rate has become this." But the budget helps you react. The budget helps you know where you need to make adjustments. It's just like saying you want to go to somewhere and you don't know how you're going to get there. I'm not going to dwell on this. Now, I want to go quickly to the eye of the ESI model. To move, remember, I know I'm talking about debt, but you have to be financially fit. You have to be financially free to make sure that you're not indebted. And having explained that debt is not bad, I'm going on to explain the things you can do to stay above board and be above debt. You have to earn well. You have to earn more. Whatever you're earning today, look for more money. You have to save better. Pastor dwelled on saving. If you need help, we handhold people. I have people who are senior to me who work with me in my group, and it's all for free. Most of them are Christians. They want to handhold people. They want to help people not to make financial mistakes. They want to help people to do things better, because we know that as many of us in the Christendom that can do things better, then the better for the church. So invest well. If you need help, I'm not going to elaborate on this because there's not much time, but make sure that your investment, that you're not looking at just one direction. And also when you're investing for yourself and also investing for your future generation. Now, for investment, you have to be very patient. Go and ask all those people in Ibadan, the CBEX, I don't know what to call them now, those people who suffered from the CBEX issue. They were in a hurry, if you ask me, because if somebody promises to double your money, you have to ask the person what the person is doing with your money. Money grows on the tree of patience, so we have to be very patient as we grow and invest. But Pastor already explained how we move from savings to investment, but we have to be very patient. It's also important that, conversations like this, when platforms like this bring people like us to, share ideas and learn, because I've learned this morning, it's because they want you to be educated and, to do the right thing. So opportunities like this just opens up the conversation and opens up questions in your head and gives you opportunities to walk and to talk to people. So you may not understand everything about investment today, but the little seed that is sown will make you ask more questions and to do things better. Remember, you cannot invest if you don't save up, because you cannot take a full month's salary and invest. You have to save. And that's where saving comes in. You have to put things aside and then eventually be able to invest in, some of the opportunities that Pastor talked about earlier on. Don't invest in what you don't know. I always say that, don't invest in what you don't know. There are 3 markets, and irrespective of your age or the status or whether you have money today or you're in debt, you want to move from owing, to owning and then to saving and investing. There are 3 markets, the money market, the capital market, the real estate market. Of course, if you're a young graduate, you may not be able to buy a house right away. But if you are in the level where God has blessed you, these are the opportunities to look at. And you can also work towards it. That's why we talk about financial targets and financial plans. You can say, I want to have this amount of money invested in money markets when I'm this age. I want to have, so having a plan, having a target where you want to end up, those things are very important. Investment guide, I have articles on my website. I have a YouTube channel where all these conversations are there. And you can just put it on when you're either waiting for the bus or you're driving. Just educate yourself, make sure that you are aware of opportunities. I'm not sure of how many of the 133 of us around the call now were part of that conversation where the Men's Fellowship of the province brought so many people to speak. I'm not sure if it was the one where I spoke as well, but the gentleman, he said, you can start a business. You don't need to, it doesn't have to be your money. You carry your plan and you do this and you do that. But how many of us know that such things exist? How many of us are even using the opportunities around us in the church? How many of us are asking questions before we invest? So I'm not going to read through this. I'm very aware of the 20 minutes, which I'm sure has passed by now. We'll share the slides later. But, we all, not that we all know, but we must be aware of Ponzi schemes. If somebody tells you to come and rent a house now in Ikoyi with inflation and say that there's a house that is 2 million, a 3 or 4 bedroom house in Ikoyi for 2 million, and you go and pay, you're already setting yourself up for failure. Now, when I talk and warn people about Ponzi schemes, I say, watch your own behavior, your approach to financial gains. Don't be eager for microwave, access to wealth. And I say also stay financially literate. And if you don't understand, don't invest. Then don't follow the Joneses, right? And then I say, watch them. What is this organization legitimate? My tailor once said that she was investing in an oil and gas company in Ikeja, and I asked her for which one. It was Ponzi, and they were taking thousands of money from this young girl who was working so hard. How many more minutes, Pastor Peter? Time up.
You're giving us 4 minutes.
Okay, we're almost there. Okay. Yeah, so, I talked about financial targets. We have conversations where if you want to set your target or if you need help, we'll just help you. And it is a chat. It's just a chat. You just ask questions and people answer you. If you don't have a plan, you're setting yourself up to fail. You must have a plan of how you want to get to the target. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be at this age, at that age? Do you want to be in someone's employment forever? I know we're talking about debt, but if we're financially fit and if we do things right, then we live above debt. And I want to just I think this is a good place to wrap up. I don't know if I still have more slides, but I say don't walk alone. Don't walk alone. My background is accounting. I worked on the back for 9 years. I'm a financial education certified financial educator. But when I want to take investment decisions, I ask people. Sometimes I become you almost say silly. You've asked so many people, and it's not that I'm not trusting God. I'm being very careful. So seek help. There are people around. The church is a beautiful place to get help. The church is a beautiful place to get help. There's nobody. If Pastor Peter with all his legal, if I call him and say somebody, he dares not charge me 1 kobo. Pastor, am I lying? You will answer the question now. So there are so many people, people are in the church that can help. Pastor talked earlier on about budgeting. I won't go there. But I also want to say this. People run into debt because they don't plan their finances together, especially when they're couples. And talked about financial literacy, lifestyle inflation. When they promote you, you go and buy a new car and all of that. Living above your means is one of the reasons we find ourselves in debt. And we must set targets. So that's it. I know there's so many things that we can share, but I don't want anybody, to go away thinking, oh, I'm in debt. When can it be better for me? It doesn't matter. I've coached people living abroad who moved from indebtedness to investing and to being okay. My children like talking about self-aware. It's as if I never heard the word when my first daughter analyzed it recently. You have to be self-aware. What is making you be in a position where you are owing? I think Pastor was talking about budget pressure and said they should look back, look back. So if you're under pressure now, how did you get here? I think I'll rest my case there, Pastor P. You're looking like a soldier. like stop. Thank you, Pastor Susan, for the opportunity, and thank you, PICP, for the opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mark. Quite incisive. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. I'm sure we have so many questions for Pastor Komolafe, so let's just note it. We'll take it during the panel discussion. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.